You are swaddled in silk, the air heavy with the perfume of crushed rose petals. A golden cradle rocks gently in the dim light, its hinges creaking like whispers in a cathedral. Around you, courtiers tiptoe, their breaths shallow, their faces pale with reverence. Not a drop of water has touched your skin since the moment you were born. The air smells of beeswax candles and the faint, sour trace of milk gone stale. Outside the chamber, the world stirs with rain and wine, but here, the very idea of water is forbidden. They believe it will seep into your bones, steal your strength, and claim your royal spirit. You do not know it yet, but this ritual will shape every heartbeat, every breath, and it will follow you to your grave. Days in the royal nursery pass in a rhythm that feels both eternal and fragile. At dawn, the nursemaids light fresh candles and pull heavy curtains against the morning sun. Shadows remain your companions, soft, gold-edged, and safe. A procession of attendants arrives in turn, the wet nurse with warm milk, the physician with his cold fingers and solemn nod, the perfumer with her delicate vials of rose and violet essence. Each brings something to you, yet no one brings water. The swaddling is changed, but never with the intention to cleanse, only to replace dampness with fresh layers of silk and linen. Beneath them, your skin is hidden from sight, as though the mere exposure to open air might invite catastrophe. Powder is dusted in gentle clouds over your body, clinging to the fine hairs on your arms. The scent is floral, almost sweet enough to disguise the stale undercurrent that grows stronger each day. The women who tend you know this smell. It is the scent of every royal child before you. They have learned to breathe it without flinching. To comment would be to question centuries of royal wisdom, a dangerous path for those whose lives depend on the queen's favor. When you cry, the room stills. No one rushes to lift you without first checking the swaddling's folds, ensuring no silk is out of place. Comfort is measured not in warmth or softness, but in preserving the order of ritual. Beyond the thick walls of the palace, the world carries on muddy streets, smoke rising from chimneys, the tang of rain in the air. In that world, children are bathed in wooden tubs, their skin scrubbed pink, their hair rinsed until it shines. But for you, water remains a stranger in the eyes of the court. This is love, protection, the highest form of care. And yet, without knowing it, you have been given a gift wrapped in silk and sealed with quiet danger. You arrive in a world already decided for you. The chamber is dim but glows with the flicker of hundreds of candles, their flames bending gently in the draft that seeps through stained glass windows. Outside, the city groans with winter wines. But in here, the air is thick, sweetened with frankincense, dampened with the heat of too many bodies. A midwife, her hands dusted in flour-like powder, lifts you with reverent caution. She does not wash you. Instead, she swaddles you instantly, in layers of silk so soft they almost sigh against your skin. The wetness of birth is absorbed, hidden, and then ignored. Around the bed, courtiers watch in solemn silence. To them, water is not purity, it is danger. They whisper of invisible poisons carried in droplets, of pores that could open and drink in illness. The queen, pale with exhaustion, offers you a trembling smile. She believes she has given you life, and now she must protect it from the deadliest element she knows. Your first hours are marked by ritual, oils rubbed into your scalp, rose water dabbed on your lips, a sprig of lavender pinned to your cradle. The sweet aroma masks the raw animal scent of a newborn, the metallic trace of blood, the faint mustiness of sweat. Beyond the golden cradle, the palace hums like a hive. Pages run messages down marble corridors, servants glide with trays of steaming broth and crystal goblets. Outside the door, a priest recites blessings meant to keep evil spirits at bay. The belief is clear. A royal body is not just flesh, it is a vessel for a kingdom's fate, and to expose that vessel to cold, untrustworthy water is to tempt disaster. You cannot yet know it, but the choice they make today never to bathe you will linger like a shadow. It will seep into your identity, your body, and your place in history. The first night is the quietest your life will ever be. You lie in the cradle, You're swaddling so tight it feels like a second skin. The silk is smooth but unyielding, pressing you into stillness. Beneath it, your own skin itches, drying under layers of powder and oil. You cannot move enough to scratch. The room smells of beeswax, lavender, and the faint sourness of milk drying in the air. A nurse leans over you, her hands smelling faintly of cloves. She hums a lullaby older than the stones of the palace itself. Her voice trembles not from fear of you, but of making a mistake in your care. Every action is watched. Every moment must obey the rules that have existed for generations. Somewhere in the distance, a church bell tolls, low and mournful. The sound travels through the palace like a ghost, wrapping itself around the shadows in the corners. Your mother rests in the adjoining chamber, but she will not see you again. Until the morning, contact between queen and child as brief affection must be carefully rationed, lest it interfere with the proper order of things. In her place, the wet nurse will feed you, the nursemaid will tend to you, and the court physicians will inspect you daily like a precious artifact. Already, they note the strength of your skin, warm, unbroken, untouched by water. They see no need to disturb it. In their minds, bathing strips away the body's natural armor. Pores, they believe, are doors. If they open, cold air and deadly miasmas will slip inside. Outside your window, rain begins to fall. The drops strike the stone sill softly, each one exploding into tiny, perfect circles. But you will not feel that cold kiss for many years, if ever. Here, in the stillness of the royal nursery, the rules of your life have been written before you've taken your first steps. The idea that water could kill was not born in your lifetime. It was centuries old, rooted in a tangle of faith, fear, and flawed medicine. In the cold halls of Europe's great palaces, physicians carried more authority than priests when it came to a royal child's survival. They had seen what happened when fever struck the young. Skin pale as linen, lips cracked, eyes rolling in delirium. Many believed the culprit was not illness itself, but the weakening of the body through washing. Water, they said, was treacherous. It could seep through the skin's pores, tiny doors to the soul, and carry with it miasmas, the invisible poisons drifting through the air. To bathe a newborn was to invite those poisons in. Religion echoed the warning. In a world where the divine was thought to shape every heartbeat, a royal child was not merely flesh and blood. They were chosen, sacred. If God had wrapped them in the protective film of birth, why strip it away? Holy texts were read through the lens of caution, and superstition turned into ritual. By the 1700s, the practice had hardened into uncheckable law inside royal courts. Water was for blessing, not bathing. Linen, silk, and scented oils became the tools of cleansing, and a child's skin was kept hidden as much for symbolism as for safety. There were tales whispered among servants, stories of noble infants who were bathed against custom and fell ill within days. Whether true or coincidence, these accounts were passed on like sacred warnings, and so, from the moment a royal child drew breath, their body became a sealed chamber untouched by the element that fell freely from the sky. Inside the palace, the doctrine was not merely a suggestion, it was an unbreakable rule. The queen herself, though a mother, was bound by it. Even if her instincts whispered that her child should be bathed, she could not defy the physicians and chamberlains without risking whispers of recklessness, or worse, accusations of endangering the royal bloodline. The nursery was a place of surveillance. Every attendant's movement was watched by another. Linen changes were logged, oil applications recorded. If a cloth was dampened, it was only with rose water or spirits, never with plain water. The touch of such a liquid was considered vulgar, fit only for peasants who could afford no better. Courtiers and clergy reinforced the fear. They would murmur that water carried the city's filth into the very pores of the skin, corrupting the purity that set a royal child apart from common-born souls. Even physicians who privately doubted the custom rarely dared to speak against it, not when their positions, pensions, and prestige depended on royal favor. The belief reached into ceremony as well. On the rare occasion a child's face was touched with water during baptism, the liquid was blessed, sanctified, and poured in the briefest of gestures. Any more than that, and the court would stiffen in horror in the minds of those who served. Each day without bathing was a victory against unseen death. They mistook the absence of immediate illness for proof of their wisdom, never suspecting that the ailments they fought to prevent were, in part, being nurtured by their own caution. And so, the child was kept in a world where the scent of lavender meant safety, and the sound of water meant danger. The irony was as thick as the perfumes in the air. The very practice meant to protect royal children often sowed the seeds of their suffering. Beneath layers of linen and silk, skin could not breathe, heat and moisture collected in folds, breeding rashes that spread like ivy. Without proper cleansing, tiny infections festered unseen until they became matters of alarm. Servants whispered about the red patches and the sores, but such ailments were treated with yet more ointments and powders, sealing the skin further under a mask of scent and softness. The true cause, the absence of washing, was never named. To question the custom was to question the wisdom of generations, and in the hierarchy of palace life, tradition was heavier than truth. Foreign physicians occasionally visited the court, their eyes narrowing as they examined the young royals. They carried with them ideas of hygiene from other lands, where bathing was not feared but embraced. But when they spoke of cleansing with water, their words were met with polite smiles and swift dismissal. "We have our ways," the courtiers would say. "Our children are strong." In the common streets beyond the palace gates, poor families bathed their children in wooden basins, scrubbing away the dirt of work and play. They had no silks, no powders, no gilded cradles, yet their babies often bore healthier skin than those swaddled in royal finery. Still, the doctrine held fast. As uncheckable as the stone walls of the palace itself, water remained an intruder, an enemy, a force to be kept at bay with every ounce of wealth and ceremony the court could muster. The child in the cradle, wrapped in the trappings of safety, would grow never knowing that this protection was also a prison. The nursery is a place of beauty and of quiet rot. From the moment you open your eyes each day, you are surrounded by scent, not the fresh sharpness of rain or the clean sting of soap, but a layered symphony of rose, lavender, violet, and musk. The air is heavy with it, clinging to your swaddling, your hair, even the fine down on your cheeks. Servants move with practiced grace, shaking powders into the air like drifting snow. They settle on your skin, mingling with the oils that shine faintly under the candlelight. From a distance, the effect is dazzling. A child whose flesh seems as flawless as porcelain, but beneath, the skin is warm, sometimes damp, always hidden. The room itself gleams with wealth, gilt-edged mirrors, painted ceilings, carved cradles draped in silk. Yet if you stand still long enough, another scent emerges from under the perfume, something sour, faint but persistent. It hides in the folds of blankets, in the creases of fabric stored too long in wooden chests. The nursemaids know this smell. They work tirelessly to mask it, replacing cloth after cloth, pouring more scent into the air. They never speak of what it truly is, the slow, unwashed accumulation of life beneath layers meant to protect. In this world, decay is made beautiful. The oils shine like sunlight on your skin. The powders glow faintly in the candlelight. Even discomfort is hidden behind soft fabrics and serene lullabies. Here, the illusion is everything. Cleanliness is not defined by the absence of dirt, but by the presence of fragrance and finery. And as long as the surface gleams, the court can believe the child is safe. For the nursemaids, caring for a royal child is both an honor and a sentence. They rise before dawn, fingers numb from the cold stone floors, and step into a nursery that must never betray the truth. Every day begins with inspection. Linens replaced, swaddles adjusted, oils refreshed, powders renewed. There is no question of bathing. Their hands are trained to cleanse without water. Using cloth and scent alone, it is delicate work. A swaddle too tight can bruise, too loose, and the child might scratch. Too much oil makes the skin slick, inviting sores. Too little, and the skin cracks. Every movement is measured, every choice bound by tradition that leaves no room for improvisation. When rashes bloom in hidden places, the women treat them in silence. A salve is applied, more powder layered over, and the matter is never spoken of beyond the nursery walls. To admit the problem would be to question the system, and the system cannot be questioned. The youngest servants sometimes falter, wrinkling their noses when the scent beneath the perfumes grows strong. The older women correct them quickly, whispering warnings about loose tongues. Rumors travel faster than the wind in a palace, and a careless word can cost not only a position, but a family's livelihood. And yet, in rare moments when the chamber is empty, some nursemaids linger by the window. They watch the rain streak the glass, their eyes following the curve of each drop as it slides downward. A few dared to imagine what it would be like just once to open the casement, to let the cool air and clean water touch the child's skin, but the thought passes quickly. Dreams have no place in the nursery, only rules do. You grow beneath a veil of fragrance, never knowing what lies beyond it. The smells of rose and lavender are as familiar to you as your own heartbeat. You do not notice how they cling to everything, your hair, your breath, the folds of your swaddling, nor do you recognize the other scent that hides beneath them, the sour trace of skin that has never known water. To you, this is simply what life smells like. Your earliest memories are wrapped in softness, the silken cradle, the brush of powdered cloth against your cheek, the rhythmic hum of lullabies sung close to your ear. But there is also the itch, the slight burn in the creases of your arms, the way your scalp feels tight under its layer of oil. Discomfort comes and goes like a shadow, never spoken of, never named. Physicians visit regularly, their eyes scanning your skin for signs of illness. When they find redness or bumps, they declare them harmless irritations, easily treated with more powder, more salve. No one considers the possibility that the cure is the cause. In the great halls beyond the nursery, life moves with ceremony and noise, music, banquets, the clatter of boots on marble. You hear it through closed doors, but never feel its air. The world outside is distant, unreachable. Instead, your life is measured in scents and textures. Each day brings the same ritual: the warm press of cloth against your body, the tickle of powder settling on your face, the faint scratch of embroidery at your wrists. These sensations, repeated endlessly, become the boundaries of your world, and so you grow, cherished and adorned, yet untouched by the simplest thing, the clear, cool embrace of water. It begins not with rebellion, but with whispers. In the drawing rooms and private corridors of the palace, conversations turn ever so slightly. A visiting envoy from a far-off court remarks on how often their children are bathed, their skin fresh as morning air. A foreign physician, bold in manner, questions the absence of water in royal care. Such comments are met with polite smiles and long silences afterward. The queen hears them too. At night, when the corridors fall quiet and the nursery's candles burn low, she finds herself wondering. She remembers the way water once felt against her own skin, the coolness on a summer day, the scent of rain in the countryside. But these thoughts are dangerous. The doctrine is older than her reign, older even than the dynasty itself. To defy it would be to admit that generations were wrong. Meanwhile, the child grows. The powders no longer hide the redness entirely, and the scent of the nursery has grown heavier, almost metallic. The nursemaids work harder, layering perfume until the air feels thick enough to drink. Change comes slowly, through the smallest of breaches. One afternoon, a junior nursemaid, young enough to still blush when spoken to, dares to wipe the child's hands with a damp cloth. It is not much, just enough to remove the stickiness of spilt milk. But when the queen visits and sees the child's fingers clean and soft, she says nothing. She only lingers a little longer than usual, her eyes unreadable. In a palace ruled by tradition, silence can be the first step toward change. At first, it is nothing more than small kindnesses. A nursemaid dips a corner of linen into a basin meant for the queen's flowers, wringing it nearly dry before wiping the child's neck. Another, under the pretense of refreshing the oils, lets A few drops of warm, clean water touch the scalp. The gestures are fleeting, hidden between the routines of powdering and perfuming, but in their own way, they are radical. The servants share no words about these acts. They exchange only glances. Quick, darting, heavy with risk, for in the palace, rules are not broken openly. They are worn away, like stone smoothed by the slow persistence of water. The queen notices changes she does not speak of. The skin on the child's hands looks less inflamed. The rash behind the ear has faded. A faint freshness lingers in the air when she visits, not the cloying heaviness of lavender, but something cleaner, sharper. It stirs something old in her memory, like the smell of rain after a long drought. Still, she says nothing. Tradition is a chain too finely wrought to break in one motion. She knows that if she voices her approval, the act will be forbidden at once. Better to let it remain invisible, a secret rebellion carried in plain sight. But rebellion has a way of growing. Soon the small cloth grows wetter. A hand is held under the trickle of a hidden pitcher. The child, startled at first, laughs, a sound so bright it cuts through the heavy air of the nursery like sunlight. Through shutters, in that moment, the women realize what they've been missing all along, the way joy can live in something as simple as water. The change does not stay hidden forever. One morning, the chief chamberlain enters the nursery unannounced. His eyes, sharp as a hawk's, sweep the room. He sees the damp cloth folded neatly on the table. He notices the faint shimmer of water, droplets on the edge of the cradle. His lips tighten, but he says nothing, at least, not here. By afternoon, the whispers begin. In the vaulted corridors, attendants speak of improper methods and foreign influence. Some call it foolishness, others call it dangerous. The court physicians, insulted by the implication that their wisdom could be flawed, insist that any deviation from tradition invites illness and divine disfavor. The queen hears every murmur. At supper, she catches the glances traded between her advisers, feels the weight of their disapproval pressing against her like stone. But in the nursery, when she sees her child's cheeks flush not from irritation but from laughter, she feels the chain of tradition straining. The nursemaids, too, sense the tightening net. They begin to work with even greater caution, drying hands quickly if footsteps approach, hiding basins behind the heavy velvet of the window curtains. The smallest splash becomes an act of courage. Then, a turning point. A foreign dignitary arrives with his family. His own child, clean and bright-eyed, is presented before the court. The difference is undeniable. Even the most devout defenders of the doctrine glance twice, their confidence flickering. Still, the palace holds its breath. No one dares declare the old ways wrong. Not yet, but the first cracks have spread, hairline fractures running through a belief once thought unbreakable. The question now is whether they will close or split the whole foundation apart. By the time you are old enough to walk, the world outside the palace is changing. Physicians beyond the gilded gate speak more and more of hygiene, a new word to the court's ears, tied to ideas of health, cleanliness, and science. Pamphlets circulate in city markets, warning of the dangers of unwashed skin. In some places, public baths are being restored, and the poor begin to speak of them as luxuries worth saving for. But inside the palace walls, the old doctrine still holds sway. You remain a prince untouched by water, your skin sealed in silks, your hair slicked with scented oils. The perfumes mask the smell, but not to everyone. Foreign guests notice the heaviness in the air when they are brought to see you. Some smile politely. Others glance toward the windows, as though longing for fresh air. Your mother watches all this with a quiet storm behind her eyes. She has allowed small breaches in the rule, but she knows the tide is turning. She has read the letters from foreign courts, seen the reports of healthier children elsewhere. The weight of tradition feels heavier each day, but so does the knowledge that its foundations are crumbling. One winter, illness sweeps through the palace. It begins among the servants, and creeps upward, claiming even the noble you follow. 2. A fever that leaves your lips cracked and your breath shallow. The court physicians prescribe powders, oils, incense. They forbid water. Your mother does not argue, but the look she gives them could cut stone. In the quiet of night, when the fever is at its worst, she sits beside your bed, her hand rests on yours, and she wonders if the very rules meant to protect you have instead brought you here. The fever does not break for days. The nursery, once a place of ceremonial stillness, becomes a chamber of restless footsteps and hushed arguments. Physicians come and go, their faces tight, their remedies failing. The air grows so thick with incense and crushed herbs that it stings the throat. Still, they forbid water, clinging to the belief that even a single touch could invite death through the pores. It is the queen who decides. In the dead of night, when the palace sleeps, and the last physician has left, she summons the nursemaids. No words are exchanged, only a single command: bring water. They hesitate, hands trembling, but the order is clear, and so they fill a small copper basin from a hidden pitcher. The water steams faintly in the candlelight for the first time. In your life, warm water touches your skin. The sensation is shock and relief all at once. The nursemaid works quickly, her movements precise, as though afraid the moment will vanish. She wipes your brow, your hands, your chest. The scent that rises is not perfume, but something raw and living, the clean smell of skin free from its shell. When the queen takes your hand afterward, it feels different, lighter, cooler. She says nothing, but her eyes glisten. By morning, you are still weak, but your breathing is easier. The court physicians claim their own remedies were responsible. The queen does not correct them. She lets them keep their pride for now, but in her heart, she knows the chain has been broken. Years later, the palace would whisper of that night, not as an act of rebellion, but as a quiet miracle. The moment the old fear began to dissolve, the queen never issued a decree. She did not challenge the council or the church outright, but when the next royal child was born, the nursemaids were given basins of warm water from the very first day. No one dared to question it, for they remembered the fever that almost stole a prince. Tradition had not been shattered with a cry, it had been washed away, silently, like dust in rain, and so, in time, the scent of mildew and stagnant linens faded from the nurseries. In their place came the soft fragrance of lavender water, of soap, of air drifting through open windows. Children no longer grew up sheathed in years of unwashed fabric. They touched water, and water touched them back, and nothing terrible followed. For you, the memory of that first bath never left, not the copper basin, nor the steam curling into candlelight, nor the way your mother's hand felt, cool and sure, when she held yours afterward. On the day of your coronation, a summer storm sweeps across the city. You step out onto the balcony to greet your people, and the rain catches you full in the face. It is cold, it is pure, and it tastes like freedom. In that moment, you think of the generations who came before you, swaddled in fear, denied the simplest human comfort, and you let the rain run down your skin as the crowd roars below. The old chains are gone now, but the water remains. From the candlelit nursery where shadows crept over your cradle, to the balcony where rain kissed your crown, the journey was never just about bathing. It was about the courage to touch what others feared, to question the rules that wrapped themselves around your skin like a shroud. The old world believed water could take life, but in truth, it gave it back, perhaps, somewhere in our own lives. We still carry rules like those, whispered traditions, unquestioned fears, invisible chains, and perhaps it takes only a single act, quiet, deliberate, unshaken, to wash them away. The question is, what is your water? What is the one thing you've been told to fear that might actually set you free?